Puerto Rico's Archbishop has called on Donald Trump to personally apologize after a comedian speaking at his rally called the U.S. territory a floating island of garbage. Trump's team have tried to distance himself from the comment, while Vice President Kamala Harris has condemned them. For News Central, our international correspondent, Afua Hagan, has more.
Donald Trump told supporters he's not a Nazi, using a rally in the final week of a bitter White House race to refute accusations of authoritarianism, including from a former top aide who branded him a fascist. As he and rival Kamala Harris, the current vice president, enter the final stretch of one of the closest U.S. elections in modern times, each candidate and their teams have ramped up the political rhetoric, inflaming an already tense campaign. Democrat Harris, who has accused Trump of stoking divisions, crisscrossed Michigan on Monday, whilst the Republican visited Georgia, another of the decisive swing states, where he said critics are accusing him of being a modern-day Hitler.
Really, both words, they use it. He's Hitler. And then they say, he's a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. I'm the opposite of a Nazi.
The comments come a day after Trump held a major rally in New York's famed Madison Square Garden that was widely condemned for racist remarks his allies made during the event. Harris, aiming to become the country's first female president, slammed that nonsense last night at Madison Square Garden as she spoke to reporters before boarding Air Force Two on Monday.
This is not new about him, by the way. What he did last night is not a discovery. It is just more of the same and maybe more vivid than usual. Donald Trump spends full time trying to have Americans point their finger at each other, fans the fuel of hate and division, and that's why people are exhausted with him.
A top Harris surrogate, former President Barack Obama, was in Philadelphia rallying her supporters and assailing Trump's allies for trotting out and peddling the most racist, sexist, bigoted stereotypes, according to him. As the clock ticks down, the challenge for Harris and Trump is both to energize core supporters and pull in the tiny number of persuadable voters who might still tip the balance, especially in the 7 swing states, where polls have them running neck and neck. Today, Harris will deliver what her campaign calls a closing argument from the same spot near the White House where then-President Trump stoked his supporters on January 6, 2021 to launch a violent assault on the U.S. Capitol. For News Central, I'm Afua Hagan.
And for more context, we are joined by our chief international correspondent, Afua Hagan. Afua, just bring us up to speed. What's the latest from the campaign trail?
Well, we heard that Kamala Harris is going to make what her campaign are calling her closing remarks, just at the same spot near Capitol Hill, where Donald Trump incited people to riot on January 6, 2021. Now, we're also waiting for Donald Trump to make remarks at his Mar-a-Lago resort. That is coming up in the next few minutes. We're not entirely sure what he is going to say. He was supposed to be in Pennsylvania today, but he will be making some remarks at that resort, at his resort in Mar-a-Lago, in the next few minutes. He will then go to Pennsylvania, where he will be hosted by the group Building America's Future. His running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, will be at another event in a battleground state. He's going to be in Michigan. And then for the Democrats, former First Lady Michelle Obama is going to headline a rally aimed at boosting voter turnout in Atlanta today.
Well, what's the, atmosphere like? Do you sense any apprehension in the air as to who is going to win this election or even the electoral process?
Well, it's clear that as we get closer to election day, it's only 7 days away, the tension is increasing. There has been a couple of fires noted at ballot boxes, and these are boxes where people mail their votes. So these are the mail-in boxes, and a couple of them have been set on fire in the Pacific Northwestern states. And that is causing some nervousness amongst people who think that their votes could have been destroyed. A few hundred votes have been destroyed destroyed in those fires. There was also a recent poll has come out that a majority of Americans believe that Donald Trump won't accept the 2024 presidential election results. So according to the new poll, 30% of registered voters, only 30% of registered voters believe he will accept the result. Which means 70% feel that he won't. And that contrasts with Kamala Harris, where registered voters feel that 73% of them feel that Harris will accept the result if he loses. The poll also found that 95% of Harris supporters don't believe that Donald Trump will concede if he loses, and 57% of Trump supporters believe that he will concede and accept the results. So there is some nervousness around this issue of conceding the results, of stepping aside when the result is called. Now, in 2020, it took 4 days for the result to actually be finalized. So the election took place on a Tuesday, and we didn't get the result into the Saturday. And that's because during the pandemic, there was lots more people who mailed in their votes, and they physically take a lot longer to count. Now that the pandemic is more or less over in 2024, lots more people will be going out to vote. There will be mail-in votes to be counted, but not as many. But we still may find a delay in declaring the result of this election because it is so tight. So voters do have this kind of concern that perhaps one side or the other won't concede the election, and that could lead to a situation similar to the one we had on January the 6th, 2021, where people were incited to riot and cause violence at the US Capitol.
Well, like they say, Afua, fingers crossed. We'll keep in touch with you, of course, to see how this, turns out. Many thanks indeed, Afua Hagan, our international correspondent.